Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Young Entrepreneurs Connect podcast. My name is Finn, and today we are joined by a very special guest, none other than Jessica Walker. Hi, Jess. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey Finn, great to be here.
So, for those who may not know, Jess is a current non-executive director at Fishburners Australia. Fishburners being Australia's #1 co-working and digital startup community. She's also recently been appointed to Community and Programs Manager at AirTree Venture Capital. Also, previously having experience at Black Nova Venture Capital as an investment associate. Not to mention founding her own company, Idle, along with being involved in many concurrent growing startups in Australia. So, Jess, first I'd like to start by understanding a little more about your background and what sparked your interest in entrepreneurship.
Amazing. Cool. So I've always been interested in entrepreneurship. From a very young age, I think I was maybe 10 years old when I was buying chocolate bars in bulk and then selling them on the bus on the way to school and realizing that you can make money from that. And little me was very excited by that. So I've always had the kind of mindset of what does this business mean without even knowing what business was back then. And then throughout university, I started a bunch of e-commerce, for want of a better word, businesses. They were all pretty rubbish, but again, they made a bit of money and I learned a lot along the way, and it was kind of trial and error. And then I had this notebook that I would write down problems that I found in the world. And there are many problems, and it could be, someone complaining about the traffic on the way to work, or wanting to do something but not having the means or the expertise or service to do that. So I started a book of kind of ideas that I wanted to turn into a business one day, and I'd go through a small process of how feasible is this? Am I the person to do it? Yes, no. A lot of the time it was no, because I was 17 and had no idea what I was doing. But that was kind of where I started out in the entrepreneur space. And then I actually left university and went straight into a corporate grad role at Vodafone. And that was great, but I learned pretty quickly that it was quite corporate, bureaucratic, political, and that wasn't really my style. So I kind of started my first business when I was 22, and it was Idle. So it's an Airbnb short-term services management company, utilizing technology to make things a lot more efficient. And basically I started that. I'd go to work around 5:30 in the morning and I'd work on it, and then I'd do my day work, and then I'd work on it after work hours until often, midnight, just trying to figure out how it all worked. I learned how to build a business through WordPress. I, Googled everything, YouTubed everything, and just kind of like stuck it all together. And I remember when I think I did a little bit of marketing. My background was marketing, and I did a commerce degree, sorry. And I was, I had this website. I did a bit of marketing around, like, let's put your house on Airbnb and we'll look after it for you. I used We a lot when it was just me, and had no customers, no systems in place, nothing. And then all of a sudden, because of an event that was coming to New Zealand, we had 4 pieces of media over 48 hours that I wasn't expecting. And it went from 0 to 100 very quickly. I had to quit my job, went full time, had hundreds of customers, and all of a sudden it was this business that I had to kind of figure out how to run. And it was an amazing experience. Did that answer the question?
Cool. Yeah. So just how did your academic background help you in your entrepreneurial endeavors at Idle at all?
I think it gave a good foundation. I mean, I was at university about 10 years ago now, and it was a good foundation of, like, processes and, finance 101, marketing 101, all that kind of stuff that you kind of need to know. But it definitely lacked a lot of real world experience.
Yeah.
And I think you can only get that by doing it and by failing multiple times and learning from others. And I think a lot of the stuff that I learned that helped me was through other people's experiences, from podcasts and books and blogs and that kind of stuff, like the real world stuff. The foundations were there, but I think I don't know.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have done the same course.
That's cool. So you kind of touched on this before, but was your plan always to become an entrepreneur, or were you originally planning on getting a normal job?
I think I was always going to become an entrepreneur. I mean, now that I'm on the other side, now that I'm in the VC world of the entrepreneurial side, it's a great role for me because I love, seeing great founders every day and working with them, but also I get to be on the investment side and help those companies grow. So my role at AirTree, I look after a program called the Explorer program, and we're actually opening up applications with they're open now. But basically it's helping teach the next generation of angel investors invest in those startups. So I think in answer to your question, yes, I have always been interested in entrepreneurial stuff, but I think I was always going to be doing it, and I now know that I will always be in this startup ecosystem.
Yes. Okay, so what do you advise a student like me interested in entrepreneurship to study/do in general?
I don't know what university is like anymore, but if it's got like really hands-on entrepreneurship, innovation-led classes, which I'm sure it does now, definitely do that. But I also think outside of that, like start to be curious about what's out there and what you can do at a young age. Like, how old are you now?
I'm 21.
21, perfect. So like in 1 year's time, you could start a company like I did, or you could do it right now. So you're never too young to start something, and like that's the best time to do it now as well, because you've got no one that's relying on you. My mindset back then was, I've got no kids, I can live on rice. I don't care if I have to like live really badly for a few years to get this off the ground. Then you can do it. But I think to get started, at least go and see startup events, go and meet different people in the startup space. Like Fishburner's Pitch Night, they're a perfect example of an event that everyone can go to, and you meet founders and investors alike, and just immerse yourself in different areas.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So next I'd like to learn a bit more about the fundamentals of starting a business. How did you come up with the idea for your first business, and were you confident that it would be successful?
So like, I guess going back to that book that I had, I'd write all these ideas down. I'd talk to people about like, hey Finn, what problems do you have in your life? And I'd literally just write down ideas. And then I would go to more people and say, hey, do you have the same problem? And then like try and brainstorm ideas on how to fix that problem. So the idle happened because my parents were going away for 6 weeks and they wanted to put their home on Airbnb to rent it out while they were away. They didn't have anyone on the ground to do that. And then I was like, I'll do it. And it was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And then I figured, why don't I try and replicate this? And that's kind of where the business started. I absolutely did not think that it would succeed. I didn't think it wouldn't succeed, but I didn't have the idea of like, this is going to be the next massive company. You have high hopes for what you do and you try and you make the most of what you do. But my main purpose for that was to learn how businesses work and understand, what can I do in this moment to change it for that? And what can I do to make this, scalable and much bigger and bring on more customers? And that's what I loved about it, is compared to corporate, where if you want to change something, you have to go through, 10 loopholes and, get sign off from 50 different people. And it takes, a year to do one thing. In startup world, and when I had my own business, it was, I want to try this marketing tactic. Okay, I'll just turn it on and try it. If it doesn't work, no worries. But yeah, I mean, in terms of successful, I guess I was happy with the outcome at the end. It was acquired by a company in the UK in a couple 2.5 years after I started it. So I don't know, we could call that success. It's a subjective thing.
Yeah, but a good learning experience as well, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Oh, nice. So what do you think are some like common traits that successful entrepreneurs share?
Good question. I'll answer this on both sides. So from a founder side, I think resilience is one of the biggest traits that you have to have, because you're going to be knocked down more times than not. People are going to tell you that your business is not going to work, or you're not going to get the investment you want. Your customers are going to leave. Your customers are going to give you a bad review, which like hurts your soul. Every day something's going to happen that you have to be resilient against, and you can't let it knock you down. And if it does, you just have to keep getting back up, because that's where most of the founders, I think the stat is like 95% of startups fail. And I think one of those main reasons is because the founder isn't resilient enough. It's not that they're not driven or motivated. They want this to work, but it's, can you keep getting knocked down? And then be like, that's fine. That's fine. So my kind of internal motto is, when things go wrong or, something bad happens, I just say, has anyone died? And if no one's died, then it's totally workable. Yeah.
Interesting. So this is similar. How important is having a positive mindset when starting a business, and what do you tell to your friends and family who might be, pretty skeptical?
Yeah, I think you have to go in with a positive mindset is great to have, but I think you also need to have one of the things about startups is it's quite overwhelming to actually start that startup. And that's why a lot of people don't do it. I can't remember what book it was in, but it was the 6 steps of a startup. And then step 1 was everyone has an idea, and everyone does have an idea. Step 2 is you might conceptualize that idea and you might turn it into like a pitch deck or something. And then step 3 is actually executing on that idea. And so many people don't do step 3. And that's why, great companies are born and people are like, oh, I had that idea. It's like, great. Good on you for having that idea, but you didn't do anything about it. So I think, what was the question?
Essentially, what do you tell to your friends and family who are like skeptical, or just mindset in general?
Yeah. So their mindset. So when things are overwhelming, you need to like really break it down into small bite-sized pieces. So like for Idle, I was like, okay, I can start this business, and then you look forward to what you want the business to look like. And it's like, well, damn, how do I actually get there? It's nice to have a goal and a vision, but the hard part is breaking it down into, okay, register the business name, think of the business name, think of the logo, decide who your customers are going to be, not in that order, but like there's so many different things that you need to do. So like writing a full list of what it can be, breaking it down and doing 1 bit every day or 2 bits every day to actually get to that point. And then in terms of skeptical, I, as a 22-year-old young blonde female, a lot of the time people didn't take me seriously. They're like, oh, how's your little side project? Or, how's daddy funding your business for you? I was like, well, these are actually things that have been said to me. It was bootstrapped solely by myself. It was, a fully fledged business, and it was just, you're going to get those skeptics, and you just have to, brush it off and think maybe one day they can read about how it was acquired. And like I see it as motivation.
Oh, interesting.
As long as you've got your core people around you that support you and that can help you, then it's great.
Yeah. Okay. So you touched on this before, but how did you get educated with the basic skills required to start a small business? Example, like marketing, product design, finding partners, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Google and YouTube back 10 years ago. I think before podcasts were super, super popular, Google, YouTube, and blogs were amazing. And honestly, it would be, okay, let's build a go-to-market strategy. Google how to build a go-to-market strategy. And then just going through lots of different techniques from lots of different experts around the world, which is why I think, university is great. And I learned a lot from a foundational point of view. But there is so much online as well. Like if you can't access a university, but you've got internet access, then you can learn everything you need to know. And there's a lot of free courses on there. I did some, General Assembly courses, Udemy courses. There's a lot that you can do to upskill and learn. And there's a few like amazing podcasts out there. A16Z, Startup Playbook. What else is there? Tim Ferriss, even though he's not super startup-y, he's great.
Oh, interesting. So this question's sort of similar. So to me, there seems to be a lack of practical entrepreneurial education within unis. Where do you recommend students look to, find information like certain courses, like for example, setting up an ABN, business financials, any legal requirements? Is this all found on the internet as well?
Yeah. I mean, everything is,
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably find everything on TikTok now. I'm sure there are TikToks out there that have like how to do an ABN and,
Yeah.
how to register or buy a domain name on GoDaddy. So
Hmm.
I think everything is at your fingertips. And then in terms of deeper learning, there's workshops and hackathons, and there's, events all the time in the startup ecosystem all around Australia and New Zealand. I'm not sure who your audience is, but they're everywhere. So like just start to keep an eye out and register to different mailing addresses so that you can sign up to these events as well.
Interesting. All right, so next I want to look at, so as a finance student, I'm quite interested in your background with venture capital and your current role at AirTree. What's your long-term vision for the fund, and what do you see going?
Good question. Well, I started at the fund 5 weeks ago, so I may not be qualified to answer that. But I think AirTree's vision is, to be the most, founder-friendly and impactful venture capital in Australia and New Zealand. So they've recently raised $700 million to invest back into the ecosystem, and a portion of that is for brand new deals. So they're going a lot more towards the pre-seed and seed stage deals. Do you know about pre-seed, seed?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah. So they're basically different stages of financing of a business. So the really early stage businesses, they get financed at pre-seed and seed stage deals and follow on Series A, and then Series B onwards is a bit later stage. So they've now got those two funds where they invest in the very, very early first check, kind of they think that you're going to make it at the first port of call, and then they have a follow-on fund as well. And I think the current market is very, very difficult for founders, and a lot of the VC money is drying up, or it's not drying up, but like it's harder to get that investment.
Current environment.
And so now it's all about like, how do we sustain and help our current investments continue to thrive?
Yeah, really interesting. So I'm kind of interested, when these venture capital firms are looking at very early stage businesses, what are the most important qualities that you guys look for?
Good question. So with the very, very early stage businesses, a lot of the time there's not a lot of data to go off, and there's not a lot of financial information where you can say, okay, they've made this in this quarter and it's gone up, or how much retention or customers or traction do they have. So it's really hard to get that those quantitative figures. So it's more about who is the team, who is the founder, do they have the expertise and the knowledge and the kind of like X factor to create what they want to create. Do they, what have they done in the past? Are they a first-time founder? Are they a second-time founder? How have they funded it? Are they trying really hard and going without and like making it happen with regardless of what's happening around them? And then you look at kind of wider what's happening in the market. Is this a product or a service or a business that people actually want? And will they use it? And will it be a repeat business, or will it be one-off and then they never see them again? So many different factors. And it's also based on the different types of businesses there are as well. So, looking at marketplace metrics versus SaaS metrics, versus B2C type metrics, they're all very, very different. But yeah, when we look at a startup, we're looking at kind of team first and foremost. Do you like the founder? Would you work with them? Are they the type of people that will lead this business into the future? So people and team, you've got your product or service, like what is it and how does it work? What stage of are they at? Do they actually have a product or an MVP, or do they have where's the timeline on that? Market. So like I said, if people actually want the business and want the product, but also who are the competitors. And one of the things that makes me smile is when people say they don't have any competitors, because there's always a competitor, or whether it's direct or indirect, it's always a competitor. So talking to that, traction, if you've got revenue, great. If you're making money, great. If you've got customers, how many do you have? How often are they on the platform or the business? And then looking at who's already on the cap table as well, and what kind of raise you're doing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of lot of really interesting factors. And yeah, that's so yeah, over the course of this year, obviously the macroeconomic conditions, you did touch on this earlier, they've become quite challenging for startups looking to raise capital. Is now a bad time to start a business?
Look, I don't think so. I mean, it's definitely a hard time to start a business, but I mean, lots of talented people are currently, they're losing their jobs. So there's a lot of people out there that may be looking for the next big thing, that you can co-found with them. But in saying that, it also depends on what type of business you're selling. If it's a consumer business and we go into a recession and then consumers aren't buying, then that may be a difficult space to be in. But I don't necessarily think it's a terrible time at all to start a business. And I mean, you've probably heard before, but great businesses are often built out of adversity, and it's those resilient founders that can build those businesses. So yeah, I don't think so at all.
Yeah, that was where I was going with that. Yeah. So I've got a hypothetical situation next. I am the founder of a small software as a service business, SaaS. I'm looking to raise capital and expand this business globally. Who and how do I contact to get a meeting with, a VC firm, AirTree or something?
Yeah, good question. So a lot of VC firms actually have, if you go onto their website first and foremost, they probably have a part on the website that says get investment or come chat to us, whatever it might be. And it might be a type form or a Google form saying, who are you? What do you do? Send us your pitch deck. And they typically have people in the back, like in the team, that will go through that on a regular basis and contact you if and when that is a suitable business for them to invest in. Other than that, a lot of people, like I know that the AirTree people are really, really open to just hearing from you. Everybody gives up their email willy-nilly. Mine's jess.w@airtree.vc. Like if anyone actually wants to just contact us, have a meeting, whatever it is, that's kind of easy. It's always a little bit easier to get that warm intro if you can, or it's a bit nicer to get a warm intro, sorry. But if you can't, a cold intro, a cold, email is totally fine as well. And then basically this process is, if that VC is interested, this will vary slightly from VC to VC, but if that VC is interested, they typically take a 30-minute call or Zoom meeting just to learn a bit more about the business, hear your story, that kind of stuff. And then progressing through that, they take it to what's called an investment committee, which is a meeting with the whole team. And it's typically to talk about new leads. And then people in that team assess it. And then from there, it's a yes, let's continue this conversation, or it's a no, thank you. And they'll hopefully let you know in a nice period of time.
Interesting. Okay, so next I've just got a couple of miscellaneous questions.
Yeah.
What kind of sources do you use to stay informed, or for just general self-development, like any books, podcasts, news sources, blogs, and any in particular good recommendations for the viewers at home?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one called Stratechery that is amazing. It's probably one of the best blogs I have seen for a very long time. A podcast called Knowledge Project. The A16Z podcast is really good, which is more startup focused podcast. Startup Playbook is very good. And then just in terms of if it's more VC focused and related, Venture Deals, whilst it could be seen as quite a boring read, it's really, really valuable to learn how VC works. And then a book that I read about 10, maybe 15 years ago called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yeah, it's a good book, isn't it? And one of the principles, he basically talks about nine or so different principles. And one of the principles that I have never forgotten is remembering someone's name is the most subtle compliment you can give them, but forgetting their name is the most subtle insult. And it's such a small thing to remember your name, Finn. But if you don't, it's like, well, I clearly wasn't as important, or you didn't care enough to remember my name. And that's done wonders in the past. So I would recommend that.
Yeah, no, I've heard that in sales often. Just mentioning a name instantly grabs someone's attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. So what kind of techniques do you use to maximize your productivity in a day and just staying focused on a task at hand?
Yeah, good one. I think because honestly, phones are addictive.
Yeah.
It's annoying how addictive they are.
Mm.
So one of the things that I do is called a Pomodoro method.
Mhm.
And so basically, I don't know why it's called Pomodoro. It's a tomato for some reason, but look it up, Pomodoro method. And
Mhm.
basically I put a timer on my phone for 30 minutes, and every 30 minutes, like I can't look at my phone. I must focus on the task at hand for that 30 minutes. And then I get a 5-minute break. And then 30 minutes again, 5-minute break. And that break might be just go get a glass of water, stand up, do a stretch, whatever it might be. But that really keeps me on task. That's my favorite productivity method. If I just can't stop checking my phone or checking my emails or doing something other than that deep task that I'm trying to do, then yeah, the Pomodoro technique.
Pomodoro. Okay, I'll look into that. Interesting. Any like final words for the people watching, like thoughts on
I'm assuming a lot of your audience is
younger audience? Yeah.
young university students.
Yeah.
If you've got a business idea, just give it a go, try it out. Like, don't risk heaps of money or anything, but start to assess whether or not people want it. Would people pay for it? Look at the market. You don't need to do a massive business plan. Just start jotting these things down. Start talking to people about it. One thing is, people aren't going to steal your idea. It's very unlikely because everyone's busy doing their own thing. And even if they steal it, they're probably not going to execute on it.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to start to tell people about it and just say, okay, what do you think of this? How do we iterate? How do we iterate? And at this age, you're young enough and, for want of a better word, carefree enough, because you haven't probably got heaps of people relying on you to try it out. So yeah, give it a go. And if anything, if you fail, great. You learn probably a lot more than you would otherwise.
Well, anyway, yeah, that's yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You're so welcome. Thanks, Finn.